everyone. I'm Lisa.
And I'm Nick.
And you're listening to It Takes Two, the podcast where two people take two movies with the same plot or premise and watch and discuss them.
And depending on where and when you are, it's still Pride Month. So in these Pride movies, 1999, But I'm a Cheerleader, and 2018's The Miseducation of Cameron Post.
Yeah, we are talking about conversion therapy.
Yeah, and how it doesn't work, because when you stick a bunch of horny teens together who are all attracted to their bunkmates, things happen.
Yeah, I like these movies. These are very queer, in all aspects of them. Both movies have queer people on the writing team, directing, in the cast, etc., etc. It's all the way down.
The wind's really howling.
Lesbians all the way down. I don't know if you can hear the wind on the podcast. Hopefully you can't.
It's winter.
We do live in Wellington.
The world's windiest city.
Yes, so it's honestly a surprise when there's not wind on the podcast.
Yeah. So where do you want to start? Because, pretty. We could start in many places here.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose for people who haven't seen these movies, again, as with every episode, we are going to spoil them.
Yeah.
I would recommend watching both of them, to be honest. These are both films about teenage girls who are sent by their religious guardians to a conversion therapy camp to be made straight.
With erotic results.
A little bit. And in both cases, spoiler alert, by the end of the movie, they have realized that it is better to be themselves than to be forced into living a lie, and they leave the camp without succeeding in becoming straight.
Yeah, because conversion is dumb, and it's just torturing your children under the guise of, I don't agree with their lifestyle because I'm stuck up and stupid.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
But
like I said, putting horny, curious teens together it's not the way to... It's like if you were addicted to gambling, so you had to go to a casino.
And just live in a casino.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're also both set in the 90s, in, I think, rural cities or rural towns in America.
Yeah.
One of them obviously made in the 90s, the other one was made later but set in the 90s.
Yeah, I think it's aimed at 93, I think was the...
Yeah, it's based on a book, and the book was set around the author's
93
experiences of growing up as a queer woman in the early 90s. So
solid acting, both movies. There's no negatives. But I'm a Cheerleader does feel like a Tim Burton wet dream, if that makes sense.
A little bit Wes Anderson.
Yeah. There's a lot of like I think, what was the director's name? Sophie, I think. No, Jamie Babbit. Yeah, Jamie Babbitt's, because they worked on story, directed. Yeah, so...
Yeah, she wrote the original story, but didn't write the whole screenplay. Also, her girlfriend at the time was the producer on the movie.
Yeah.
It's a real family affair, it seems like, because she had done a short film...
I love that song.
Yeah. She had done a short film starring Clea Duvall, who plays Graham in this movie. And then she got her girlfriend to be the producer. She got a gay man she knew to write the screenplay, and then Clea Duvall just rounded up her friends to be the cast, essentially, is what's happened. So it was a really a kind of a passion project for a bunch of people. Clea Duvall famously is a lesbian woman who has made her own films about queer relationships and things, but also was in the closet until 2016.
Right.
Despite like one of her early films being this one, where she is a lesbian in the 90s. So I think probably important for her to have been in that film as well. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting how it seems to just be a movie that people just really wanted to be in.
Yeah. It's the setting of it is far light-hearted. It's almost sub-reality. Like that's why I say like if you have seen Tim Burton movies,
Yeah.
even like Edward Scissorhands is a bad example, but like it doesn't feel like real life. It feels like Tim Burton's brain.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
even the weird remake of the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory that he did, even the real world doesn't seem like the real world. Everything is just slightly, I was going to say magic, but there's probably not the right word.
Yeah, they really wanted. I think the goal was to really lean into like exaggerated gender stereotypes.
Yeah.
So like all of the rooms that the women or the girls are in are like based on Barbie aesthetics.
Yeah.
And then where the guys are, it's all blue and like it's really weird.
It's it's not played straight.
Ha ha ha.
But that's the only way I can put it. Like, in a non-derogatory manner, it is the gayest conversion camp. Like, everything they do is just literally stereotyping. Like,
but this happens in both movies, though.
Yeah.
That they both talk about essentially how, and I'll use a term from the Miseducation of Cameron Post, gender confusion is the cause of people thinking that they're gay.
Right.
In the Miseducation of Cameron Post, they don't acknowledge that being homosexual is a real thing.
Yeah.
Which is how some people who run these kind of places actually do treat it. It's just like this misconception you have of yourself, but there is no such thing as being gay. You're just confused by gender norms, and they do this exercise in both films where in But I'm a Cheerleader, they're finding the root of their gayness, and in the Miseducation of Cameron Post, it's that it's an iceberg where the tip of the iceberg is that they are gay, but what's underneath it is what's caused it. And in both cases, it's things like, I was encouraged to do sports. My mother wore pants to her wedding, And it's like, oh, these things have confused you about what is, normal for men and for women, and therefore we need to enforce these stereotype gender roles on you for you to realize that you're a woman and therefore you must be attracted to men.
Yeah. Natasha Lyonne, that there's a moment in the movie where it's such a fun, that when you're talking about the root cause.
Yeah.
And they're like, what is it for you, Megan, who's the character she plays? It's like, oh, well, my dad lost his job and my mom had to work, so maybe that was it. And the dad is just like, it was 9 months.
Yeah, and then the lady who's running the camp is like, oh, your father was emasculated and your mother was domineering. And her parents are like, what?
Yeah. It's so funny and unbelievable. Like, the relationship between Mike, who's like the camp counselor, and Rick, who's the son of
Rock, I think.
Rock, sorry, yeah.
Even weirder.
Rock is the son of the owner of this. What is it? Straight Direction.
True Directions.
True Direction, yeah.
Yeah. But the first time we see Mike, he's played by RuPaul.
Yeah.
And he shows up in this bright pink van and wearing a shirt that says straight is great.
Yeah.
So good.
And yeah, just this constant interaction of like Mike's looking after the boys who are doing something to like prove they're straight by like playing American football or chopping wood with a hand axe. That's all they ever seem to do. And Rock, who's like looking after the property for his mum, is clearly very, very gay. I will describe his character for him. He is well dressed in the typical 90s dress of a gay man, which he is wearing Daisy Dukes, Timberlands, and a tight t-shirt. He has got the perfect haircut. He's got the perfect amount of stubble. He is very, very shredded, and he is prancing around the property doing tough guy butch things, but in the gayest way possible. Yeah. My favorite scene is because it's just like there's so much sexual tension between Mike and Rock. It is great. The moment where the boys are doing something, and Mike watches Rock walk onto the screen, and he's got a broom or a rake in one hand and a chainsaw on the other, and he positions the fucking handle between his legs, and he's just like rubbing the tip of it slowly and just eye contact with Mike, and Mike is losing his mind, and the horniness is just so funny because they're supposed to be like super straight, like being gay is bad, and they are just so gay for each other. It's so amazing.
So in both movies, the treatment center, or whatever you want to call it,
Rick?
Is run. What?
Is Rick the ex-gay character?
Oh, is his name Rick in the other one? Is that why you're going Rick and Rock?
Yeah, Reverend Rick. That's why I was getting Rick and Rock confused.
Oh, Reverend Rick. No, I was talking about the guy. So, sorry. What I was going to say is the treatment center is run by a woman.
Yeah.
In conjunction with a man who is ex-gay himself.
Yeah.
In Miseducation of Cameron Post, that man is her brother.
Yeah.
Who's her first convert. So she saved him, and then he's helping her save all these other kids.
Yeah.
Allegedly. In But I'm a Cheerleader, it's Mike, who's ex-gay, but then also she has her son Rock, who is around and is
super gay.
You know, she is trying to force him into a closet.
Yeah.
And it's, so I feel like in Miseducation of Cameron Post, those two characters are just like amalgamated into one.
Yeah.
I actually really like that guy. He's very nice.
Who? Which one?
In Miseducation of Cameron Post, the guy, I can't think of his name. You just said Rick was the Reverend.
Yeah, Reverend Rick, played by John Gallagher Jr.
What?
John Gallagher Jr. plays Reverend Rick, who's the brother.
Oh, okay. Is he a reverend?
That's what his name is in the...
Okay. Anyway, yeah, so Rick in Miseducation of Cameron Post is actually, like, really well-meaning and sweet.
Yeah.
And is just, like, genuinely trying to look after these kids and has been clearly put in this situation where he has had this, like, enforcing him so much that he believes it, and he thinks that he can actually help people to be like him without realizing that what he is not ideal. Yeah,
the main difference between these movies is the actual camp environment itself.
Yeah.
In But I'm a Cheerleader, it's like a giant house in rural area. It is vibrantly painted. All the rooms are vibrant. They are everything is vibrantly painted. It's either very, very pink, very, very blue, or this weird green, like an emerald green that comes in sometimes. And there's a lot of props and a lot of like set dressing that is the emerald green, and it really emphasizes how crazy this sort of like weird world that they're kind of building. Like, this is the norm.
Yeah.
We'll get into like the really abnormal this is a norm stuff in a bit. Miseducation of Cameron Post it could be a holiday camp. It could be like a summer camp where you'd send your kids.
It's a lot more realistic.
It's in the wilderness. You know, the kids can walk off. One of the girls, I can't remember the names because they're actual like human names in the other movie.
Was it Jane?
Yeah, Jane. Jane is and what's the Adam? Yeah, Adam. So they're sort of very close. Cameron sort of like comes into their sort of relationship as they're working through things together.
Yeah.
Being that like they're all it's very medical in that they're like, oh, well, you're clearly this and you're clearly that and this is the reason and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And Adam is Native American. And he, because of their beliefs and their religion, it doesn't act with the beliefs of their current religion, because like his stepmom came into the picture and his dad converted, and therefore like he's no longer following their native religion. He's now having to follow Christianity, and that's why there's something wrong with him.
Yeah, so he is Two-Spirit as well. So he's a third gender.
Yeah.
He doesn't identify as male.
Yeah.
He's Two-Spirit. He's Native American, and then his dad did follow that. But then I think he said he got into politics.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he got into politics.
He got into politics and became a Christian, and then suddenly his identity was no longer accepted because his dad
I'd gotten confused with the Graham's character.
Yeah.
Who
She's
had
got the stepmom.
Rich stepmom,
Yeah. So his dad got into politics, and then from there, it was no longer acceptable to have a two-spirit gay child, and so he got sent to this place.
Yeah, it's very summer camp. They have rooms together. It's just sort of like help yourself cereal kind of, breakfasty thing. They sort of like have to make the food that they then eat, which all makes sense within like when you've only got like 3 staff. Do they have 3 staff or 2 staff?
I feel like it's only really
2 of them you were to see.
Only really Dr. Lydia and Rick.
Yeah.
But I do. It's a lot more grounded in reality because. The other thing is that, Cameron arrives and everyone is at different stages of their, their treatment or their process. And, and she's learning that you have to earn different rights, because when she starts there, she doesn't have the right to go out and go on hikes. And she doesn't have the right to decorate a room and things like that. And, you earn rights by doing well on this program, which is touched on also in But I'm a Cheerleader, because she has to earn the right to have clothes instead of being in like a hospital gown, but like, which is
so like every part of that is so insane.
But I'm a Cheerleader is very hyper real, and it is that Tim Burton kind of style, and it's this it's a satire. It's satirizing the religious right wing people. It's satirizing how gender norms and stereotypes of gay people as well. But also, like, she arrives and everyone else at the camp started there yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's like, what does that even mean? And they're, like, working together on the exact same progress so that they can graduate at the same time. It's a really weird system because, like, how would it be that they all got submitted at the same time?
Yeah.
When she's had, like, an intervention where all of her friends and family have been like, we think you're a lesbian. She's like, I don't think I'm a lesbian. They're like, you're making us eat tofu.
Yeah, you're a vegetarian. Your boyfriend is a awful kisser.
Yeah.
He is god awful at kissing. It is all tongue and no love.
I imagine they were given the direction to make it as like
gross,
unsexual as possible, as just like unappealing as you possibly could.
Yeah, Cam's character, Chloe Maurice. What's the
Chloe Grace Moretz.
There we go. Thank you. It's very innocent. It's just like 2 girls who clearly have feelings for each other, exploring their sexuality, and she gets caught on prom night, having her first like sexual encounter.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy she's with is the one who like took them there, finds them, and then it sucks because like the friend rats her out as well, and it's just like, oh no, I was pressured into it. She's the influence of it, and
because the assumption the whole time is that the boyfriend who she went to prom with is the one who told on her. That's what she thinks, and then she finds out it was actually the girl who she, from her perspective, was in love with.
Yeah,
was the one who told people and said that she, that she didn't have any of these feelings or any of these tendencies, and then Cameron came in and was like trying to draw her into the the darkness or whatever.
It's very very realistic. It's interesting because like you get all these characters who are in both movies that are from different things. There's like in the movie, the reasons, the iceberg, the root of the cause. It's very weird where because in Miseducation of Cameron Post, she's literally a licensed therapist who has now dedicated her life because her brother was gay into converting gay people.
Yeah.
And there are no checks and balances right up until the end of that movie, where she is 100% going to lose her fucking medical license.
Good.
And it's not a safe place. No. It's not healthy. Like neither of these environments are super healthy, and we'll go into that in a minute. But like what I said earlier in the beginning of the podcast is when you stick horny, confused teens together, things happen. It's not a healthy environment in general to be just like, oh, cool, but that's half the point. But like these people, the parents, like they're also victims in this because they are so put into a box that they can't understand anything outside of it, to the point where it's just like, because you want us to eat tofu, you must be a lesbian.
Yeah.
Because your boyfriend is a terrible kisser, you must be... Like, all of their...
I mean, it turns out she is a lesbian.
Yes, she is a lesbian. But the point is what they're going off is bullshit.
Yeah. It's that, she has, like, a poster of a woman in her locker.
Yeah.
Which they refer to as gay iconography, which is very funny.
And it's the music she listens to.
Yeah.
Because it's both in... I don't know what the other band is that Cameron's obsessed with. She almost steals the cassette at some point.
Yeah, and it's one that the other girl got her into as well.
Yeah.
But it's like music that's not acceptable for Christians. Like both of these do have very much religious undertones as well. And that's comes from, where the people who wrote these stories are from as well.
And if there's people out there who still believe this bullshit, just remember what the Pope said. And he is the most religious of them all, because he's like the Pope. The parents like suck. Well, it's not just parents. It's Cameron's grandparents, because their parents are dead. Is that what I remember?
So in the Miseducation of Cameron Post, her parents are dead. She's living with her Aunt Ruth.
That's right.
And then her aunt and her grandparents are praying for her. It's very... Miseducation of Cameron Post is weird in the beginning in that it tries to do the, like, show, don't tell thing, but it doesn't show in a way.
Yeah. There's
so
not
it's
enough
not obvious.
Yeah,
I think it works because then things are kind of explained as you go on later on.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like you've just stepped into a moment in someone's life.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't, if it was real, she wouldn't be going, these are my grandparents who I live with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's very much like you have to kind of pick up on, context clues at the beginning, and then it's later on she's like, my parents are dead, and you're like, oh, and then she refers to like her Aunt Ruth, and it's like, oh, that's who that is. So it's very much done, as if you've just kind of appeared at a moment in this person's life to watch a window of it.
It's interesting too, because they're basically just not being allowed to be kids.
Yeah.
But I'm a cheerleader. It's so weird that they have to put, there's these weird gender roles of like, this is what men do, this is what women do, and we'll get into the weirdness that's the lead up to graduation later. Because depending on the age of the people involved, I don't know if this is actually legal.
Yeah, they're all supposed to be like 16, 17, I think.
Yeah. And
in both movies.
Yeah. And Cameron's just like trying to deal with just the shit. She's been betrayed by everybody she loves. She's trying to find herself.
You get that really heartbreaking moment where because they don't have phones and things, she breaks into the office to call her aunt and say, if I told you I'm not happy here and I don't want to be here, would you let me come home? And the aunt is like, no, not until you're normal, basically. And you have her being very vulnerable and crying. Yeah.
It's also this like sort of not diversion, what's the word, this division they have between everybody is just sort of reinforced in both movies. You get the stereotyping and but I'm a cheerleader, but it's this concept that like you can't be who you are because the only thing that matters is your sexual orientation. It wouldn't even matter if, like, you were straight because of, you know, these reasons. Well, it wouldn't matter how you fit into society. The only thing that's wrong with you is because everything you want to do is a sin because some stuffy old people that probably never got laid wrote it down in a book.
But it's also very much about conformity and, like, being exactly how they want you to be. Because you get, like, with Adam, he has longer hair.
Yeah.
And they get... You know, they get really mad at it to the point that they eventually just shave off his hair for him.
Yeah.
And then, you know, in contrast to that, in in But I'm a Cheerleader, you find out one of the girls is actually straight. She's genuinely straight, but no one believes her because she, you know, she has she has hair on her lip. You know, she has a mustache of sorts.
Yeah.
And short hair, and she likes playing sports.
Yeah.
And that's it. She plays sports. She looks kind of butch. And they assume she's a lesbian, even though she's like, no, I really am attracted to men. I really, you know, I like...
That's my favourite part, is she's just like, no, I want some fat hog. And one of the gay guys is just like, me too, sister. It's so great.
But it's this idea that, like, even... And I mean, that is, like... Because I know that this is a movie from the 90s. That is so prevalent. In today's society with trans issues.
Yeah.
Because you have this argument that, like, from people who don't know what the hell they're talking about, that, you know, trans people need to be segregated and shouldn't be allowed in bathrooms of the gender that they identify with, or that they are, sorry. And, you know, this concept that you can't let trans women into women's bathrooms because they could be men pretending to be trans women because they're predators and they want to assault women. But instead what you have is you have actual, like, cis straight men going into bathrooms to police it.
Yeah.
And cis women who are not trans have never, you know, who just don't fit into the conformity of what these people think a woman should look like, are being assaulted and being, you know, attacked and othered because they think, oh, well, you don't look like what I think a woman looks like, and therefore you must be a man pretending to be a woman.
The worst part of it is this miseducation, of the public because of these very, very far... Like, I don't want to get too much into politics. It's not the place for it.
Yeah, I mean, it is.
Yeah, it is, but...
This is a Pride episode and we're talking about conversion therapy.
Okay. So, if you don't believe me, you can look up the stats yourself. The ban on drag queens having any entertainment towards children is this disgusting idea that it is for grooming purposes and all this other bullshit that the right is throwing out, because they're afraid their kids are going to end up gay because they see a beautiful man in a beautiful dress with beautifully done makeup. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. Being gay, being trans, it's who you are. Yeah. That's you inside. You can't, it's not like, this is one of my favorite quotes, and it's from some random person online. It's like, oh my God, all this straight propaganda on television has made me, like, straight. It's not how it works, folks. Yeah. You can't just be like, watch, like, a bunch of rom-coms between men and women and then automatically become straight. That's not how it works, so it doesn't work the other way. This concept that, you know, drag queens are preying on children and that educating your kids on consent and sexual education is also part of, like, this weird conspiracy to convert your children into being gay for the leftist, like, ideal and all this other bullshit. I would like you, if you don't believe me, to look up the statistics of how many of these outspoken people are actually child molesters, have been convicted of having child pornography, and how many people who are drag queens, who are out there doing it, have been convicted of all these horrible crimes. Guess what, motherfuckers? Yeah. It's not what you think. It's not what they're telling you. They're covering up their own crimes by doing this.
Yeah, it's diversion tactics.
Yeah.
They're saying, look at this person who is different from us and therefore they are a predator. And at the same time, the person who's saying that is preying on children.
How many super anti-gay politicians who, like, basically wants gay people to be executed have been caught being gay. It's not the other way around, folks.
I mean, being gay isn't the problem.
Yeah.
It's the fact that they're actually people who are assaulting and molesting and harming other people.
But it's the diversion that's the part where they're lying to you.
Yeah. They're trying to put the focus on someone else, put the hatred on someone else to hide their own crimes. It's genuinely shocking because, like, how many drag queens doing children's book readings have actually assaulted a child?
None. How many right-wing governors and senators and people elected into official seats in America have been caught? Far too many. Far too many for it to be like an anomaly in the statistics.
Yeah.
And it's like, the other thing is, like, you know, there is way more dangers for your kids online these days. Like, you get so much crap with grown men making entertainment aimed at children.
Yeah.
Than there are drag queens who are going, like, I've never met a drag queen who was even, it's madness. It's madness to be just like, oh, well, they're different, so therefore they want to corrupt our children.
Yeah.
No, your system is corrupting your children. That's the problem.
Yeah.
We have gone so far off the rails here.
Not really. Great. It's what the movies are about.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. And I mean, one thing that I think both of these movies do well, I think they do everything well. Let me say that straight off the bat. But it's the diversity. Both in terms of, you know, race and things like that, but also, like, in terms of actual representation of queer people.
Yeah.
That you have, you know, in But I'm a Cheerleader, even though it's, like, very much supposed to be hyping up and satirizing these stereotypes, your main character is not a butch lesbian. You know, she is very feminine, and she is a cheerleader. That's the joke of it. But she doesn't, like, even at the end when she's realizing, A, she is a lesbian, B, she's in love with this other girl, C, you know, she doesn't care what her parents think. It's more important to be herself and be true to herself. She never stops that.
Yeah.
There's a moment where she goes to these guys who are a gay couple who were previously in this conversion camp, and
which doesn't make a lot of sense.
Ex gays is what they refer to themselves as. And she asks them, you know, like, all right, you need to tell me how do lesbians dress? What do I need to act like? And things like that. And they're like, no, you need to just be you. Just keep being you. So at the end, like, she wins over this girl by being a cheerleader and doing a cheer and still being herself, still being feminine, still being the way she has been the whole time. It's, you know, this isn't a box people put her in. This is just who she is. Whereas, you know, other movies could have done it that, like, when she realizes she's a lesbian, she suddenly becomes butch and doesn't care about the stuff. But that's who she's been the whole time. You've got the girl who's a goth girl, and then I feel like Melanie Linsky is pretty feminine in it as well.
Oh my god, she doesn't even hide her Kiwi accent.
They just let her be a Kiwi in it. I just love Melanie Linsky. Clea Duvall is a bit more butch.
Yeah.
And then and with the guys, you've got, you know, Dante Basco, who is quite masculine and is into sports and things like that, but is gay.
Yeah.
And then you've got other ones who are very camp, and then you've got, like, a very, like, shy, soft-spoken Jewish guy. Like, there's such a diverse range in how these people are depicted. And in the Miseducation of Cameron Post, you have the same. You've got some who are, like, real prim and proper. You've got some who are quite feminine, some who are quite butch.
Yeah.
You know, and everything in between. And you've got camp guys and guys that you would never look at and assume. Yeah. And that's the point, is that you shouldn't be assuming what someone's sexuality is just by looking at them.
Because the reality is it doesn't actually matter.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a bizarre bizarre way we're looking at it that people have to, like, it's just this weird putting people into boxes. It's like, oh, cool, you're within this age group, therefore this. You're in this ethnic background, therefore it's this. Oh, you vote this way, so therefore you're this. It's like this lot of, everything has to be organised and put away in its own little box and labelled and counted and numbered and, you know.
Can I talk about our lead actresses for a second?
Oh, go ahead.
Because Natasha Lyonne...
Fantastic.
And Chloe Grace Moretz...
Fantastic.
...are both actors who have starred I think... Well, Natasha Lyonne has been in multiple queer roles, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, she became very famous for... Well, but this was like her breakout role, really, and then also she became very famous for Orange is the New Black, where she plays like a very outspoken lesbian. Yeah. And Chloe Grace Moretz, I think, has played queer in other films as well. But they're both actors who people really like try to ask about their sexuality a lot, and they're both actors who have not at any point put a label on their sexuality, at least publicly, which is interesting. Though I do know when promoting the Miseducation of Cameron Post, a lot of people were reporting, you know, like, oh, this is, or like asking Chloe Grace Moretz about what it was like to happen to be like a straight actress playing a gay character, and she just was like, why would you assume somebody is straight? To the best of my knowledge, she has been in a long-term relationship with a woman for the past 5 years or so. But like I said, very doesn't put a label on her sexuality, at least publicly, and it's quite private about her private life. The Natasha Lyonne, I think, is generally reported as being straight. I don't know if she's ever said she's straight herself, but I found a really great quote from her about her sexuality, which is, I look at sex as more, what's this mischief I can get into? I'm in this third category. My sexuality and gender is more like merry prankster. That sounds very, very Natasha Lyonne. But yeah, so they're both, so the leads of both these films are people who just like have not publicly put a label on their sexuality.
Yeah.
And I think that's fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
You do not need to be out there saying, oh, I'm XYZ.
Yeah.
You don't need to have a label for sexuality, and if you do, you don't need to tell everyone. Yeah. And it shouldn't be like that we assume everyone is straight unless proven otherwise.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be that we have to like demand
it doesn't have to be
tell us.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to be on your business card.
Yeah, and I touched on Clea Duvall, who, like I said, was in the closet. Yeah. You know, she said she has said she was heavily closeted at the time of But I'm a Cheerleader, but still went and made this movie.
Yeah.
And then, you know, she came out 17 years later, and since then has made movies about being queer, and I think to her it's become an important thing for her to talk about, and that's great for her as well, if that's what she wants to do, is talk about being a lesbian and make movies about that. But like, you don't need to tell us. They don't need to tell us.
Yeah.
You know? And I think it's great that both of these movies star people who may or may not be some flavor of queer. Yeah. And don't feel the need to define that.
Yeah. 100%.
You know.
There's very good casting in both these movies.
Yeah. I do like that it's all just like Clea Duvall's friends.
Yeah.
In But I'm a Cheerleader. I mean, take one lesbian and cast from the movie and then go, you got any friends? Yeah. Because her and Melanie Linsky met while Clea Duvall was working as a barista in a coffee shop, and Melanie Linsky came in and she was like, oh my god, you're the girl from Heavenly Creatures. Like, gave her a free coffee. And Melanie Linsky was like, this is the first time anyone gave me something for free. And then they became friends, and then Clea Duvall suggested her for this, and Jamie Babbit had seen Heavenly Creatures and was like, yes, give me that girl. And Natasha Lyonne was just like on a road trip with Clea Duvall because they were best friends. They're still best friends, 30 years later or whatever. And yeah, so she was in her car and saw the script in her car and was like, ooh, can I be in this movie? And then became the lead role. I think they also, like, from what I read, they were really excited about putting Natasha Lyonne in that lead role as, like, a preppy cheerleader very feminine character when she like is normally typecast as like very tough talking, almost butch person. So it was fun. I think fun for her to be playing against type, in a very hyper feminized role.
We're deep enough into this to start talking about the dark sides of both of these movies.
Yeah.
Do you want me to start talking about Mark, or do you want to talk about Mark?
You can,
okay,
if you want to. So,
in the Miseducation of Cameron Post, they have these posts, they have these weird group therapy sessions where they all have to talk about themselves, trying to, diagnose themselves, which is really toxic behavior from a therapist. And, within not just the characters we've mentioned, I think his name is... I can't remember his name. One of them is clearly dealing with, like, drug addiction as well.
Right.
And who he basically just fires hate left, right, and centre. Everybody else is because, they haven't gone through... It looks like he could have been living on the street. It looked like, he could have been kicked out of home. It's very interesting because we don't actually get a backstory to him. I can't remember the name of his... Is it... No, it's not...
Was it Dane? I don't know. I'm looking at them now and I can't recognize them out of character. It might have been Dane.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know the guy you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And... Mark is one of the characters who's in this, and he's played by Owen Campbell, and he is very much in this concept of like, I have to fit in, they're making me fit in, and he basically just has a breakdown in the middle of this therapy session. And when I was talking about earlier about the therapist who's running this place losing her friggin' license, this is the entire point of it, is because he starts having a panic attack. He's quoting from Corinthians 12, and he is having literally an emotional breakdown, and he is screaming.
Yeah, the context for this is that he felt he had done well enough that he was going to get to go home, but his dad won't let him.
Yeah. And because of this, because of his breakdown, because it's being not treated very well, he ends up trying to emasculate himself during the night and is found by Adam and taken to hospital. And it is one of the most fucked up scenes in this movie is where Rick, who's supposed to be like friends with everybody and like, we're all in this together, guys.
Yeah, he's very much like camp counselor, trying to be cool, trying to be your buddy.
Yeah. Has a breakdown in front of Cameron because he has no fucking clue what he's doing.
Yeah.
And she ends up being the one that's counselling him at this point.
Yeah.
And that's when her decision to be like, I'm out, like, this, I'm done. Like, even if I can't go back to my family, I'm not staying here.
Yeah, it's a real turning point, because there's a moment earlier on where when she realizes that Adam and Jane have hiking privileges, and they can leave the compound if they want to, but they keep coming back. She's like, why don't you just go? And they essentially say, like, what's better, being homeless on the streets or being here and having to put up with this? And this moment that you're talking about is the turning point where they go, being homeless on the streets is better. Is the better alternative to this.
Yeah.
Because up until that point, they're like, well, at least, we have something here.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the real turning moment in that movie. And it's like Cameron speaks with like some third-party investigator.
Yeah.
And he's just like, are you being abused here? And she's like, well, they're not abusing us physically, but like emotional abuse and being like withheld from privileges is a form of abuse. And he's like, oh, I guess so, and like takes it down. And they're like, no, fuck this shit, we're out of here.
Yeah, she basically said, because she talks about, she's like, what about emotional abuse? And he's like, do you feel like you're being emotionally abused? And she's like, how is forcing someone to hate themselves for who they are not emotional abuse?
Yeah.
And he's like, I'll make a note of that in my notes. Because the place is being investigated because this kid has ended up in hospital because, fast forward a couple of seconds if you don't want to hear something graphic, but essentially he has taken razor blades
from Adam,
and he has tried to cut off his own penis.
Yeah.
And then poured bleach on it.
Yeah.
And that is how he's ended up in the hospital. And they don't really talk about it as well in the place. They just say he had an accident, and everyone's like, and they're so vague about it. People assume he killed himself, and then they say, but he might be okay. And then they're just like, just tell us what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, if he didn't try to kill himself, what has happened? And I mean, you know, But I'm a Cheerleader doesn't take it that far at any point with the characters in it, but they do talk about it.
Yeah.
Because they say at one point something, I didn't take down the quote, but it's something along the lines of, you know, your options are, if either you go through this and graduate, you run away, or you kill yourself.
Yeah.
Or basically is what they say.
The darkness in But I'm a Cheerleader really comes to this weird graduation ceremony lead-up test thing.
Yeah.
And it is it's uncomfortable. It's not unbearingly uncomfortable because the colourfulness and the way it's played out, where it is very much like this weird dream sequence, but not really. It's hard to. It's Tim Burton. Just think Tim Burton.
It's very it is very hyper real, but then you can see in the characters' faces. I think like the expressions and the acting in it is where you get to see the glimpses of like, oh God, you know, like think about what's actually happening here.
Yeah. So you have this lead up of the boys having to play football and chop wood, and being marked on it.
The girls doing housework.
Yeah, the girls having to do housework and
makeup.
Yeah, makeup and just scrubbing stains out of carpet. And I think that's probably the most like just glossed over. Like that's the most dark part of the entire thing. It's basically like these are the only two options. Yeah,
it's very much enforcing gender, like very stereotypical, like 1950s gender roles that like you must, you know, the women must do the housework, the men must
it is it's very 1950s.
It's very 1950s, and it's this idea that like, but like that they're taking these, and it is touched on in Miseducation of Cameron Post as well, that they're taking these teenagers and being like, and basically just playing house with them, being like, you are learning to be a wife. Yeah. You are learning to be a husband.
Yeah.
And in Miseducation of Cameron Post, you get that moment where she's on the phone with her aunt, and her aunt says, "Don't you want to have a family someday?"
Yeah.
As if like the only option for her to have a future is to have stereotypical nuclear heterosexual relationship family.
Yeah.
But the
guess what, folks?
The last bit before graduation.
Guess what, folks? It's not the LGBT plus community who is eroding the fabric of society. It's the upper class who have basically destroyed the middle class, which basically means that no one can afford anything and we're all just slowly suffering.
Woo!
Yeah. That's, you know, when a house 20, 30 years ago is now worth $1 million more than it was worth then, and you don't, guess what, earn $1 million more per year than you would have then. Everything is fucked, and it is not, you know, the gay people who are coming for your kids are the ones that are doing it. It's politicians, it's people we keep electing into these powers, people who keep giving landlords tax cuts, letting companies have monopolies over entire fucking productions of things and basically increasing the price to the point where, oh, well, you know, it's all about why companies' growth margins every year. That is the real menace to society. Mm-hmm. Not people who just want to be themselves, be left alone, and have same-sex relationships. Or polygamy, you know. Polycules are a thing now. You know, it's different. It's not just black and white. Either you like penis or hate penis. Like there's more options.
Anyway, so this like gender role class thing they have culminates in a sequence that they have to pass where they have to simulate sex.
Yeah.
Where they wear these like full body
like Adam
suits.
and Eve on stage kind of outfits.
Full like skin colored body suits with like leaves covering
like Adam and Eve,
private parts. And the woman has to lie down on the bed and spread her legs, and the man has to simulate having sex with her. And it's this like they're just like emotionless and like they've been like they've just totally given up their submission. And
it's there's a little bit it's touched on earlier of what the emotionlessness in it. In both movies, actually, in Miseducation of Cameron Post, obviously she's had sexual and relations with the girl, and later in the movie she's like constantly having dreams about having sex with women, including one of her teachers at one point. Sexual encounters with women. Mm-hmm. She tries to fantasize about being with a man.
Yeah,
and just she can't.
Yeah,
and you sort of get this bit in like the reversion of it, which is in the beginning of But I'm a Cheerleader. She's making out with her boyfriend, who, again, I will reiterate, is awful kissing. It is all tongue and no love.
Yeah, and she's not into it all, and she's thinking about the cheerleaders' clips.
Yeah.
And it's so, like, everything about it is just, like, so uncomfortable. And then later on, she does hook up with Graham, the other girl, played by Clea Duvall. And it's done in such, like, that whole scene is, like, filmed really centrally, and, like, there's a lot of chemistry between them. But they're caught, and then they're both kind of given the ultimatum of either you renounce this and you finish and graduate and be straight, or you will have to leave here and your families will disown you.
Yeah.
And Megan, our main character, who has been the reluctant one to this point, says like, no, I'm done. Me and Graham are going to be together. We're gonna leave here. I don't care if my family disowns me because I can't stop being who I am. And then Graham, who has been the rebellious one the whole time, gives in and is like, just can't cope with the thought of being disowned by her family, even though her family are horrible.
Yeah.
To the point that her dad is like horrible to all the other kids.
Yeah.
And calling them slurs and being like a real shithead. And then in the end.
It's almost like the root cause of Graham's aversions away from men is her role model for a male is her father, and her father is a piece of shit. It's almost like, well, she is a product of your own making. She is your child, and you made her this way, in the way of like that's the stereotypical. That's the idea that they're like trying to.
She hasn't become gay because her father is like that.
Yeah.
But it's so funny that like their concept of it is, something in your childhood has made you this way, and yet if that's what he believes in, why is he continuing to be like that?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just the hypocrisy of the whole situation.
Exactly.
It's so stupid. It's bizarre.
It's just such that relationship in general is just like the concept of like, oh, you either do what I want or I'm cutting you off, and because it's almost like he doesn't care, but he cares in a way because he cares because that's what society expects him to care.
He cares about the appearance
of himself, yeah.
To him, she's just a part of proving that he's got the perfect family and he doesn't. She's a lesbian.
Yeah.
Or if she's rebellious like she is. It's interesting because there is such a high rate of homelessness amongst LGBTQ youth. And both of these films end up with our lead queer characters and the people they've connected with on their journey in this place choosing homelessness over conversion and over their families.
They both have like a very maybe you haven't seen it, maybe you have. It's the old Incredible Hulk show, where at the end of every episode he's basically like hitchhiking away from the
right.
to the destruction that he's caused.
Yeah, I think the ending. My assumption would be that the ending of the Miseducation of Cameron Post is a nod to But I'm a Cheerleader.
Yeah, and I feel like the glimpse of like the storyline of these people's lives is we are at the turning point where this is the beginning of the story.
Yeah.
It's not very much like, and then they lived happily ever after.
Yeah.
It's very much like, here's how they got to where they're going in life because, their families were just like, you're different, you have to go to mind prison, bye.
Yeah, and I think the prospects for Graham and Megan in But I'm a Cheerleader are more positive than the prospects for Cameron and Jane and Adam in the Miseducation of Cameron Post because they have support from somewhere, because they have that couple. I've forgotten their names, Larry and someone. Yeah,
the interesting part of that is they're supposed to be XX people, right?
XX gays.
Yeah,
not XX people.
They're
not undead.
Yeah, yeah, they're not undead. They're not.
Lloyd and Larry
were at the camp. That's why they know where it is and why they're trying to smuggle the kids out and but they are way older than.
Yeah, I assume that the concept in this one is that camp has been going for a longer time, whereas in Miseducation of Cameron Post, it's set up by Dr. Lydia.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're XX gays, because Mike is also supposed to have been. Through it, and he's around the same age, if not older than
and he is clearly not fixed in air brackets. Because,
spoiler alert: no one gets fixed from conversion. Yeah. You can't fix someone people, from being gay.
You can't fix them from being themselves.
So Lloyd and Larry, while they're not exactly operating a home for broken children.
It's not an underground railroad.
They are, because you get it with Dante Basco's character, whose name I have forgotten, that he...
Rufio.
Rufio. Zuko, Prince Zuko. So when Prince Zuko is kicked out of the camp, he goes to Lloyd and Larry, and they are letting him stay there until he can get on his feet.
Yeah.
When Graham and Megan run away, leave together from the place, they go off in Larry and Lloyd's ute, in the back of their ute, driving off. So they do have someone to support them and give them a little bit of help in getting their way. Whereas with Cameron and Jane and Adam, that it's very much seen, or it's very much depicted as a lesser of two evils choice, that they know that they're going to be homeless and it's going to be really hard, but it will be better than the alternative, which is staying at the camp and continuing the abuse that they're receiving there. And they just they hitchhike in the back of a ute and go off, and it's simultaneously the happiest you see any of these characters look in the whole movie. They look genuinely really happy. But then there's moments where it lingers on it for a long time, and you can see that there's a bit of anxiety about what happens next. And there's a shot just before that as well, where they've left Rick at the breakfast table, where that also lingers really long, and you kind of, because I really feel for his character, because he is very much. I mean, I know Mike is the same in But I'm a Cheerleader, but it's played for laughs. But in Miseducation of Cameron Post, this guy is very much someone who has had his whole identity erased from him, and now is he's very childlike as an adult, and like you said, he has that moment where he breaks down, and it's obvious he has no idea what he's doing, why he's there, what's going on, and he's just trying to keep it together and just do what he's told. And there's this moment where he's just sitting there eating, and he has no concept, and they're really nice to him. I think they understand it. But they're clearly planning to go and leave. And he has breakfast with them and is trying to make small talk, and they're kind of giving him polite responses, but then they go, and he has no idea that's what they're doing. He's very naive. And then you just left lingering on him, just sitting there by himself, because that's his whole life is going to be that.
It's quite a dark moment, because the kids are just like, oh, we're gonna go on a hike early, and it's just like, wow, it's so early, like I'm just gonna eat this cereal and try and hang out and be, like you said, the cool youth pastor thing.
Yeah, and he's like, wow, you guys are really dedicated to hiking. They're like, yeah. And then he's like, oh, I must come on your next one. They're like, yeah, definitely.
Sure, yeah. It's it has a very like somber moment. It reminded me a little bit of the spoilers for a show that's really old, but The Walking Dead. One of the characters, who's a little girl, is basically the real reality of the world now has broken her, and she is a danger to everybody. And there's a really dark moment, spoilers for The Walking Dead, where one of the characters is just like, look at the flowers, look how pretty the flowers are, and she's like staring at the flowers, and then shoots her in the back of the head because she has become a liability to every last human survival. And Rick kind of has that moment where it's just like, he's like, look, like, it's kind of like, yeah, guys, they're all sitting around like, we're gonna get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And they're just like, yeah, enjoy your cereal, Rick, enjoy your cereal. Oh, we'll go for a hike with you some point, and then just leaves. And the consequences for him and his sister are like, they're screwed.
Yeah, and
like there is no court in, well, maybe depending on where they get tried, but like, they are going to face some charges. They're going to face some, like, one, children disappeared under their care. I'm assuming the parents have paid for them to be there. I don't think this is free. 2, one of the children has, like, put himself in hospital out of self-harm.
Yeah. And one of the kids who's just disappeared accused them of emotional abuse before disappearing.
Yeah.
And while I think they're like, ideally they're going to face some charges, because the other option is that no one cares and they keep running the camp, and it's left ambiguous, because that could be what happens. Depending on where they are and how it's treated. But if they do face charges and it is shut down, I think that is deserved on the part of Dr. Lydia.
Yeah.
But Rick is a victim as much as anyone else.
100%.
And the film does on Paul punches with that.
Yeah.
You know that his whole life has been, that, the abuse that they're withstanding for a couple of months or however long it is, he has had it for his whole life.
Yeah.
And that's, and they very much are just, they make the choice to leave him. But what choice do they have? Because they can't really say, hey, come with us.
Yeah, we're running away. Like, come with us.
It's not going to work. So he does, no matter what happens. And if the camp keeps going, or if the camp is taken down, it's bad for him.
I thought when we were watching this movie, and feel free to steal it, folks, if you are an upcoming screenwriter, just please, mention our podcast at some point. I thought the greatest, like, B-movie, horror movie that you could possibly make at the moment is literally an apocalypse, but the setting is a conversion camp. Because you get, like, the characters, like, being like, oh, we deal with this bullshit, and then it's like, oh no, here's some real bullshit, and you could literally just have the kids grouped together and, like, fuck up the faculty and, like, survive because of their diversity, because of, like, the they've been put through all this, where you'd see the normal people, like, I say normal people, I mean as in the people running this place, snap and break because of, just the fact they're put under pressure and all this shit.
Yeah.
I just thought, I was like, watching this movie, I was like, this is perfect. They're in the woods. Typically American horror movies are usually set in rural areas because majority of people live in urban environments, where British UK horror movies are the opposite, where most people live on the countryside, and it's always the 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later both happen in the city. Same with a lot of other UK based horror movies. And I just thought it would be a really fun concept of just like, you know, it's like a slight twist on the whole, like, you know, Friday the 13th, or not Friday the 13th, you know, everybody goes cabin in the woods, that kind of like, let's all go camping for the weekend, for the long weekend, for the summer. It's just like, oh yeah, like a bunch of kids that didn't get forced to by their parents to go into the conversion camp end up being like the heroes of the thing because of they're used to, you know, not being accepted, so they're using that as their inner strength. Just a thought. Just a mind fart that I had when I was watching the movie.
All right, fair enough.
You know, lots of woods, lots of survival. Because what was it? Oh no, I don't even get into the M. Night Shyamalan bullshit.
You talking about The Village?
No, Knock Knock or whatever the hell it was recently.
Oh yeah. I haven't watched that one.
Yeah. Why did Dave Bautista sign up to that? Anyway, yeah, they both end very similarly. Obviously, there's a huge tonal difference. The motivations are basically the same as we want to be ourselves. Obviously, there's like a love interest in but I'm a cheerleader. You know, they have to go and rescue them, which is another like really interesting sort of take on the whole scenario. Where do you want to go? Do you want to go into some little trivia there? Because obviously the budget in these box office of these movies isn't like, it's not going to break the bank. It's not an Avatar.
Yeah, have you looked at the budgets of box offices?
I have.
So they're both very low budget movies.
Yeah, which is
But I'm a Cheerleader
not obvious.
Yeah, But I'm a Cheerleader was a higher budget, 1.2 million budget.
Yeah.
In '99, so
there's a lot of money.
You know, adjusted for inflation, it's a lot of money. And then box office made 2.5 million.
Yeah.
So not a lot compared to what it cost. And Miseducation of Cameron Post, the budget was about $900,000. And it made $2 million in box office total. Yeah. But only 900, about the same as the budget was what it made back domestically, and then it made it a bit more internationally. They both had limited releases. What I found interesting is I'm looking at the wrong movie. The Miseducation of Cameron Post. It was at Sundance Film Festival and it won awards, but then struggled to get a distributor for a wider release. So it was the first grand jury prize winner at Sundance in more than 25 years to not receive immediate distribution.
Wow.
And then it was eventually purchased and got a limited release. And it was released in 85 theaters across North America.
It's interesting because what's happening at the moment, talking of film festivals and limited releases and issues, that weird Francis Ford Coppola movie requires a live actor to interact with Adam Driver on screen.
Oh, that's weird. And
so there's no theatres that have put, like the last time I looked into it, there's no theatres that have actually picked it up because they don't want to have to pay an actor.
To go in there.
Or a staff member to have to read lines to Adam.
That's so weird.
It's so weird.
Okay.
But apparently it's like really divided the judges. So it's very interesting to see a movie because honestly this is not a pleasant topic that comes up in most people's discussion. It's like, oh, oh yeah,
It's so stupid though, because
what if most people, like normal people said, brought up a conversation. It's like, oh, school holidays are coming up. Oh, where are you sending your kids? Oh, they're going to go stay with their grandparents. Oh, I'm sending my son/daughter to a conversion camp. You'd be just like, what the fuck? Like, I wouldn't accept that. And like,
you just like switch tracks mid-sentence. I don't understand what's just happened. You were talking about a Francis Ford Coppola movie.
Yeah.
And then you were okay. I don't know what's just happened. Did I just have a stroke?
No, I think I did.
Because I was going to respond to the Francis Ford Coppola.
Oh, okay. Go.
And say that like they're shooting themselves in the foot in terms of wide release on home video, because like.
How are they going to do that?
Exactly. You can't have a DVD or streaming release of a movie that requires an actor to be there.
Yeah.
Because no one people aren't going to hire an actor to come into their home to recite to their DVD.
Yeah.
Anyway, you suddenly were on a different.
Yeah. So what I was saying is that
how you got onto it.
I do understand. Thank you.
I don't. I said.
Okay. It's the concept of conversion camps are not socially acceptable
anymore.
Yeah. And it's interesting to show how positive the response of this movie was with the judges, where you get Francis Ford Coppola's movie being like, half the judges are like, I don't understand, and the other half being like, oh yeah, it's really well made. And it's just a shame that it was only a limited release where it would have done better. You know, it goes back to my favorite episode of this podcast, which is about the girls travelling over the border of states to get abortions.
Exactly what this reminds me of.
And it was review bombed because a lot of loud people who would probably get all their fucking nutcase friends together to help review bomb something so people don't see it, so it doesn't get distribution. And I think it's, you know, we talk about education being important for the children, but we don't want to educate them on things that are against what we feel. Mm-hmm. And I say we, I mean, I don't feel this way about, I'm completely accepting of every community, because guess what? Unless you fuck with me, I don't fuck with you. And a lot of people are just like, oh, well, this is against my whatever beliefs, morals, code. And you're like, well, your code is fucked up then. I mean, maybe you should be looking at the code rather than the people who want to entertain children for free. Yeah.
So, But I'm a Cheerleader also got a limited release.
Right.
So these are both movies that got limited release, didn't really get picked up by distributors, and basically made back their costs. And yet I think they're both, you know, like, But I'm a Cheerleader is definitely very popular among the queer community. It's a movie that has really endured, like, that is, you know, it is an iconic LGBTQ film that people reference constantly in queer spaces.
It's interesting too, because like I can think of quite a divisive movie that a lot of people don't like, who like has a character that's quite popular within the community, which is Tyler Durden. Okay. Because, you know, the response is, we're a generation of men raised by women and we expect another woman to be the solution to all of our problems. And it's the other quote is that our fathers were the image of God and our fathers aren't there. And it is very much along this lines of like, oh, you know, being not the straight norm is therefore a sin and therefore bad. And it's like, well, you know, absentee God, it doesn't help people have faith in religion, and therefore why the hell would they, you know, follow these guidelines? And that's why, you know, the corruption of the youth. It's like, no, it's just because they're not blindly following dogma. Sorry, you like lost you there. Yeah.
That's all right.
Sorry, you continue.
I was just saying, it does remind me of the you know, Never Early, Sometimes Always, and I'm Pregnant, in that, like, these deal with topics that are difficult, and also they're very much focused on the queer community and on negative experiences that people have had, that a lot of people have had. Whether through actual conversion camps or through people in their life trying to put them into a box that they don't belong in, or being alienated, or being abandoned because of their identity. And it's, you know, it's kind of sad that they didn't get picked up for wider releases and that they didn't make more money. But I think, I feel like I've heard of the Miseducation of Cameron Post a few times, but this was the first time I'd seen it. And I think it's a very good movie.
Yeah, I think her choices in movies have been personal and not like motivated by money.
Yeah.
Which is very unusual for young actors, in my opinion. And then you get others who have used their fame to be basically pieces of shit, which is an ongoing issue at the moment with some stars of a show I won't mention. But we've all seen it. It's interesting to be like, let art be art kind of mentality. and, you know, to be able to focus on smaller projects rather than just be like, I need that $15 million paycheck every single movie I make. And it's good to, like... And, you know, going back to But I'm a Cheerleader, like, the cast in that is insane.
Oh, yeah, fantastic cast.
They're literally most of them are household names now.
Yeah, I love that it was, like, literally, like, Clea Duvall, like, yeah, I'm just gonna...
Yeah, get all my cool friends.
Get all my friends. Because apparently I think her and Natasha Lyonne were up for a lot of the same roles.
Yeah.
And they had the same agent. And their agent, and it was like Clea Duvall was in the agent's office one day when Natasha Lyonne called, and they were like, "Oh, you guys should talk to each other. You'd be you know, good together."
Is there a second season of that show we really liked?
Which show?
Was it Poker Face?
Oh, Poker Face. We watched. I thought there were 2 seasons. We watched both of them. Right?
Is there a third season?
I don't know. Poker Face was great.
Yeah.
Or was there 2 seasons or was it only 1? I can't remember. I just love Natasha Lyonne in everything, to be honest. It is, or she, you know, she's just great. Yeah, it was 2 seasons. Yeah, we watched 2 seasons.
More, please. Oh,
I don't know when the next season's gonna come out, but I
Yellow Jackets.
Yellow Jackets is another fantastic show.
Yeah.
I genuinely love Melanie Linsky. I think she's fantastic. Or maybe maybe we have only watched 1 season of Poker Face. Was it only 1 season? I feel like it was 2 seasons.
I'm not sure. Maybe it was only 1.
I don't know.
I'm trying to find it now.
It says there's 2 seasons, but there's only 1 episode of the 2nd season listed on iMDb, and there's no details for it. So it must have been only 1 season.
Well, it says
but there is going to be a 2nd season.
Yeah, this is 1 season with 10 episodes on Wikipedia, so maybe there is. Let's scroll down to a point where it says if there's a...
2nd season in the making. Yeah, she's great. Russian Doll definitely has 2 seasons. But that's another Natasha Lyonne show that got very popular. Melanie Linsky's great and everything. I love her. Even just like she's in like 1 episode of The Last of Us, right? And she was great.
Oh my god, I've forgotten about that show. Yeah.
Fantastic. Clea Duvall also, I think, fantastic in everything she's in. It's a great cast. I mean, we talked about that Dante Basco, who's Rufio and Prince Zuko.
Yeah.
He was also Jake Long, American Dragon, for anyone who watched that show in the 2000s. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like everyone in it is good. It's like phenomenal. And the lady who runs the camp the house is the real estate lady from Casper, from the 90s Casper movie. So she's just like typecast as 90s villain. Also, Michelle Williams was in it. Michelle Williams was the cheerleader who had the intervention with her. Yeah, anyway. And RuPaul. I think we mentioned RuPaul plays Mike. RuPaul in a rare appearance not in drag.
Yeah.
Playing an ex-gay camp counselor.
He
at
is
a
not
conversion.
He has just been traumatized into...
Yes. Well, that's the whole point. That's literally the whole point of both movies, is that like what they're doing is just forcing trauma and abuse on children to make them not be who they are.
Yeah, it's torturing people into compliance.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, we said we were going to get into trivia, and then we didn't actually do it.
I thought we were.
Well, we did, and then we got away from it. It got away from us. So in the Miseducation of Cameron Post, the Christian exercise video, Blessercise, that they watch to do like feminine sports, because there's a whole thing where they can only do like gender neutral sports or sports that are with their gender, because her whole thing is that she was encouraged to do male sports, and therefore that's why she's gay.
Track and field is not male, but okay.
I know. But that's why they say hiking is a gender neutral sport, so we're allowed to do this. And then like the jazzercise stuff that they do is a feminine sport, so that's fine.
That's so dumb.
But anyway, so that Blessercise video is real footage from an actual 90s Christian exercise video.
That's awful.
And what about Cheerleader? I don't know. There was not much in the way of like IMDb trivia for these films, so I have just like gone on rampage of reading interviews with cast and crew, both of them. Because what interested me was the diversity and the queerness in making the films.
Yeah.
That it's not just like a bunch of straight people got together and wrote these films about gay conversion camps. So, for example, Desiree Akhavan, I don't know if that's how you pronounce that, is the director and one of the co-writers of Miseducation of Cameron Post. She is a bisexual woman from Iran, where homosexuality is illegal.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that her, you know, that while she made this film in 2018 and it's set in 1993 about how Americans treated homosexuality in the 90s, you know, very much she's coming from a place where her homeland is a country where being who she is punishable by law.
Yeah.
Still, at the moment, in current times. And it's a good reminder that is, you know, that is a problem in a lot of countries. Yeah. That you can't just be gay. At the time that because this was set in 1993, in Ireland in 1993, it still was illegal to be gay.
Yeah.
And you know, where I'm from, people would view Ireland as more progressive country than a lot of places. But in my lifetime, at the time when this film was set, it was illegal to be gay in Ireland.
Yeah.
You know, so and like I said, she's from Iran, where it still is. The author of the book that it's based on, Emily M. Danforth, is a woman. I haven't seen her define her sexuality anywhere, but she is queer and she is in a queer relationship as far as I'm aware. But she grew up in the 90s in Miles City, Montana, which is where the movie, where the novel is set, and I believe where the movie is set as well. So it was very much based on her experiences growing up queer in that kind of a community in the early 90s. And I've already mentioned that Chloe Grace Moretz had said to people, you know, don't assume anyone's sexuality when people were trying to write about her being straight playing a queer character.
Yeah.
She also, Chloe Grace Moretz, grew up Southern Baptist in Georgia, so in the southern United States. And she had two brothers who were gay, who both tried to pray the gay away.
Right.
So very much for her, I think, a personal choice in making this film about how, you know, doing that is not a way, you know, it isn't going to stop you from being gay, and also it's better to be honest with yourself about who you are and to live your true self than it is to try and force yourself into this box for the sake of religion or for the sake of a family that don't actually care about you.
Yeah.
So I thought it was interesting that she did that, like I was going to say both of her brothers, but I think she has more than two brothers. I think she's like one girl in a family of 4 or 5 brothers. But that she had two brothers who were gay and who did go through this experience of trying to like pray away that gayness so that they could be good, you know, Southern Baptist boys. And as I said, she is currently in a relationship with a long-term relationship with a woman. So while she hasn't labeled her sexuality, I think it's safe to assume not straight.
Yeah.
But not to assume what it is. For the other movie, we've already talked a little bit about it, that, you know, Clea Duvall is a lesbian woman. The director, Jamie Babbit, was a lesbian who grew up in Ohio. The screenwriter she brought in. So Jamie Babbit also, she wanted to make the film. The screen robber. No, so Jamie Babbit, the director, and also who kind of like came up with the story concept. Her mother ran like a 12-step drug rehabilitation program. And she originally wanted to make a movie about that kind of a system, but then she'd heard about some conversion therapy thing and was like, oh, that's a really interesting, like, can we combine these and have like a 12-step conversion therapy program, like bringing these two together, being like how ridiculous it is to be like, well, here's your 12 steps to being straight.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what it is. And the screenwriter she brought in, Brian Wayne Peterson, is a gay man, and he previously worked at a prison clinic for sex offenders, where they had to go through conversion therapy and rehabilitation within this prison clinic. So he had experience of what that kind of environment is like, and the kind of language used around getting people to, convert to being normal in air quotes. And he used that experience combined with this, this concept of a 12-step conversion therapy program to write the movie. Natasha Lyonne, like I said, identifies as a merry prankster, which is good for her. I think I've touched on how Clea Duvall just got all the cast in. Something that I think we should talk about that the director of But I'm a Cheerleader would want us to talk about, because she's very staunchly outspoken about this, is that the movie was originally slapped with a higher rating, and they had to shorten the shot of Megan masturbating,
right,
and re-edit the sex scene between Megan and Graham, and to cut out a joke about Megan performing oral sex on Graham.
Right.
And she's been really outspoken about it because there's double standards, both in terms of showing gay or same-sex relationships, same-sex sexuality,
yeah,
and in terms of showing female sexuality compared to showing straight men.
Yeah.
For example, they do have a joke in the movie, an oral sex joke involving male characters that didn't have to be cut, but they did have to cut one about the female characters.
Right.
But also, a year before this, American Pie came out, which was a much raunchier, had a lot more, sexual content, even than the pre-edited version of this. And it's a raunchy sex comedy about straight teens.
Yeah.
And didn't get the higher rating.
Yeah.
And the fact that because she's making this, even though it sounds like the pre-edited version of the sex scene between Graham and Megan isn't actually a whole lot more, worse than it is now. Like, it was still very tame and not showing anything.
It's interesting that you mentioned American Pie, because that movie literally has crimes in it.
Yeah.
That you would probably go to jail for if you tried to do these days.
Yeah. It is incredibly raunchy, branded as a sex comedy.
Yeah.
And yet this was being rated higher.
Yeah.
Because it was women and because it was same-sex stuff.
Yeah.
So she's been very outspoken about the double standards by the MPAA. And the other thing that I want to talk about was. This is just a fun bit of trivia. This is not getting into anything. But Natasha Lyonne, the day before shooting started, got drunk and got a tattoo on her shoulder.
Wow.
And the director was so upset because there were scenes where she had to be filmed in a sports bra doing cheer routines, and she was like, why have you done this? How could you do this? And Natasha Lyonne just said, I don't know what happened. I just love the idea that she, the night before shooting, went out and got drunk and got a tattoo while drunk, and then was like, I don't know how this happened. But yeah, I think that's about everything that I wanted to talk about.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think these are both really good movies.
They are. They're thoroughly enjoyable.
But I'm a Cheerleader is a classic, an LGBTQ classic. I think the Miseducation of Cameron Post should become one.
100%.
I think it's very good, and it's more of a comedy than I expected it to be. I thought it was going to be very drama, very dark.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of comedy aspects to it. So it is, it can be light, and it's very like real life.
Yeah.
That you're finding the moments, and you're finding the comedy in your situation when things are dark. Yeah, I think it's very, very interesting, and it's, and I can understand why someone who comes from a place where homosexuality is still illegal would make that movie, in modern times. Because other people would be like, why you don't need to make this, because we've moved on, we've made same-sex marriage legal in a lot of places. But it's that reminder that it is still illegal to be queer in a lot of places, to the point that there are still places now where it is punishable by death to be queer, and it is dangerous for people, to travel, things like that. There's places that you'd have to avoid, you couldn't go to, because of what would happen to you if they found out that you are not straight or not cis. I think they're very good movies, and they touch on very important topics in slightly different ways. But I appreciate I think it's great that they have so much diversity in the cast and crew and in the characters that they show. Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I think they are thoroughly enjoyable movies. Definitely worth a watch. Hopefully before you listen to the podcast, but it's kind of late at the end of it to say that.
They're also quite short as well. They're both not, under an hour and a half long.
Yeah, so. They're not. You could fit both of them into an evening. It's difficult these days because it's not just the LGBT I was going to say committee, but there's another community who is under attack. It's a lot of people at the moment because of the realization that a lot of these old white men who have been in power for so long have destroyed society, and they're trying to scapegoat it so we don't literally pick up pitchforks and torches and kill them all.
And on that thought as well, that both of these movies are very much about stereotyped gender roles as well, and so they're. I mean, I would consider these both to be feminist movies. Because they're about the harmfulness of gender roles and gender stereotypes.
They definitely probably both pass the Bechdel test. That is not a great
easily
test. It's two women not talking about a man. It is a terrible and low bar, folks. And a lot of movies don't pass that.
It's just shocking how many movies don't pass that. But the very much are about, not just about queerness, but about gender stereotypes in general and how harmful those can be. And even, you see it a little bit with Megan's parents in But I'm a Cheerleader, when the woman is, who is so hell-bent on enforcing these gender roles and gender stereotypes onto these kids to stop them from being gay, is saying oh, you've got a problem because your mother is domineering and your father is emasculated. And they're kind of going no, we're fine. And, and it should be fine that the woman, that in this heterosexual relationship, that the woman was earning the money while the man was unemployed and looking for work. That the family was still affluent. They weren't destitute by any manner of means. And to then, so you do see them question that a little bit there, but that even though by the end of it they're still saying they're going to disown Megan if she doesn't become straight. There is a question of their own identity and their own, masculinity and femininity and this enforcing of all men must be like this and all women must be like this and all men must do these things and all women must do these things and all men must be interested in these things, and and how harmful that can be to someone's whole environment, and how harmful it can be to their mental state, and and we do see that we have these people who are clearly having significant mental health concerns because of the boxes they're being forced into that don't fit with who they are.
On that unpositive note, thank you for listening to our podcast. We do appreciate the listens. I know you can get pretty deep, dark, and hard in this kind of these times. It's nice to have a little bit of a like reminder of how silly things are in the lighthearted moments and but like the cold dark reality of the dark moments. It's a bit I think these movies are played very well together, same as my favorite episode, because one of the movies was lighthearted and one of them was very realistic. It's just you gotta take some time, focus on your own mental health, focus on your own thing, stop blaming other people for your problems.
All right.
Yeah.
If you want to join the discussion, you can join our Discord server. There is a link in the show notes and also on our website, which is ittakes2.co.nz.
Thank you for listening.
Goodbye.